This is the Authority Company Podcast, conversations with leaders that are designing our future. Hola, I'm Joe Pardavila, and I learned a lot from my mom, especially about sacrifice. So when I was a little kid, my brother, mom, and I were walking out of the store, and it suddenly started to pour rain. She took out the umbrella, handed it to my brother, and we walked to the car, got in nice and dry. And I turned to my brother and asked, why did mom do that? Why did she give us the umbrella? And he said, she wanted to sacrifice herself for us. She wanted us to be safe and dry, and she didn't care if she got wet. And I noticed over time that my mom was always sacrificing herself for us. And I'm sure if you're watching or listening to this, your mom probably did the same thing if you were lucky enough to have a mom like that. And that could be a problem sometimes for women. They sometimes sacrifice who they are, their dreams, for other people. Well, my guest today hopes to help women change that mindset. Her name is Judy McCutcheon. She's the author of the new book, Unfiltered and Unapologetic. Judy is the CEO of Go Blue Consulting, and she has over 2 decades of experience helping transform teams from the Caribbean to North and South America. We're going to talk about her journey to getting here, the lessons she learned from her mother, and what it's like to live a life that's unfiltered and unapologetic. Judy, how are you? Welcome to the podcast.
I am doing wonderful, Joe. Thank you so much. I'm happy to be on this podcast.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Very kind of you. So I want to start by unpeeling the title of the book a little bit, because the third word, and that's unapologetic. Because Judy, I understand the context that you're writing about unapologetic, but I feel like as a society, and I don't know if it's an ideological shift, political shift, or whatever, we've become a society of like, no need to apologize for anything. It's fine. You know, if someone's feelings are hurt, it's their problem, not yours. So tell me about this world of being unapologetic, but also, but being unkind about it. So, I know that could be, and I get that we're going to get into the context of why you write about being unapologetic, but I'm just curious on what your thoughts in terms of writing a book about that subject matter now, when we're sort of in a world where everyone is kind of unapologetic.
Well, from the book standpoint, right, the unapologetic is not about, it's about you being able to speak your truth unapologetically, because so many times as women, we tend to think that we need permission to do things. So the title really is saying you can do you unapologetically, however, not unkind. Not in an unkind way. We think that it's okay when we say, "Oh, I'm just going to tell you how I feel because that's how I feel." It's okay to tell me how you feel, but it's not okay to be unkind. And so the world that you're talking about, it's just we have gotten so unkind and mean to each other, you know?
Yeah, and it's funny too, because in the world of business, I know Netflix made it very popular, and there's been books written about radical candor at work and being completely unfiltered and unapologetic in a way of criticisms and support. How do you think the idea of living unfiltered and unapologetic works in the realm of business, where it doesn't get back to where your point about like the unkindness of it all? Because I think we all want to be truthful. And I think, you know, as kids growing up, like our parents raised it to be like, yeah, it's okay to lie a little bit because it hurts someone's feelings. So there's a bit of a fine line there. But tell me about how this sort of framework works in business.
In business, if we are talking about being unfiltered, being unapologetic from an unkind standpoint, you see, intention is what matters. So if I'm going to give you feedback, what are my intentions behind giving you those feedbacks? Is it to hurt you? Is it to make you better? So I believe that intention is what matters more than anything else. I can tell you the truth, Joe. I really can tell you the truth. But why I'm telling you the truth and how I'm telling you the truth is really what matters.
The intention piece is loaded, isn't it, Judy? Because it's one of those where the intention could be to be positive for the person, but if your intention is also to like one up them, make them feel bad about themselves. I mean, boy, and I always like to say that everyone wants the world to be black and white, but there's this whole gray nuance part of it. Man, I think there's so much nuance in that intention piece, isn't there?
The thing is that so one of the things I've noticed in organization, and especially with leaders and managers, because they're the ones who set the tone, yeah? And what I've noticed is that there's a lack of self-awareness, a total lack of self-awareness. And
You are clicking my tongue, Judy.
Yeah.
I say we have a major self-awareness problem in this
Yeah.
world, but so I'm singing your song.
Yeah. And I say to leaders, self-awareness is your superpower. Right? The more self-aware you are, the more you understand how the things you say and do affect the people around you, the better you are to create environments where everybody feel safe. Because what happens is that when we start to be truly unfiltered in an unkind way, when we start to be unapologetic in an unkind way, we create unsafe environments for people. And we have lack of trust happening, then you're going to see turnover happening, and then you're going to be wondering, what am I doing? I say to you, become self-aware and you'll figure out what you're doing.
Nah, it's great. Good stuff. You mentioned or at the jump about your intention of the book and giving people sort of women permission to be unapologetic and unfiltered. Where did that mind shift come for you? Was this something that happened organically? Was it intentional? Was it something you learned from others? Like, how did this journey to you writing the book start?
Well, it was a mixture of things, right? I grew up in Tobago, the smaller island to Trinidad and Tobago, to a single mom. And my mom showed me a lot of what strength and boldness and resilience looks like. So I'm the 8th of 10 kids. I'm the last girl. So I got a lot of, I got a lot of leeway with the things I could have said and done. So one of the things my mom always said to me, you can say, you can tell me, but you just must be respectful with it. So I understand that I have a responsibility to me and to the next person that if I'm going to tell you, I have to respect you. One thing that we need to always do is when we leave an interaction with anybody, we need to leave them whole. We need to leave them with their dignity. So that is one of the things I've learned from growing up. I've also, I've always had women who are older than me around. I've always been around them. So I've seen the things that they have done. I've seen the mistakes they have made. So I've seen all of that. And then there was a point in my life when I started to shrink. I started to move away from who I am really. And, you know, a mixture of different things would have caused this. It would have been some trauma. It would have been, you make all these crazy bad mistakes and then you start ruminating on it. So it starts affecting you. And now you start shrinking. And that happened to me. And I had a medical emergency. And this is funny. I had like 24 hours to live. And I'm lying there and the doctors are they're having this conversation above me. I can hear them, but I'm weak, but I can hear them. And the anesthesiologist didn't want to give me they didn't want to administer the medicine because my blood count was very, very low. And the surgeon is saying to him, well, you might as well do it because she's gonna be dead anyway. And so after hearing that, I thought to myself, well, if this is it, what have I done really with my life? Did I live? Did I just, like, what did I do? And then I realized I didn't do any of the things I wanted to do. So I promised myself if I came out of this alive, I would really start living. So that process kind of brought me back, helped me to get back on track. And of course, I read a lot of books, I had coaches, I did therapy. So it's a mixture of stuff that really got me to a point. And 2020 made me decide to write the book because I'm home doing nothing.
Wow, that's awesome. That's great. And you mentioned your mom, and in the book, you write about how your mom sort of developed your identity as of being a badass.
Mhm.
So tell me about. Well, I guess I think we all kind of had an idea what a badass is, but it's all different shapes and sizes. Not one well, I don't think every badass is created equally. So what does a badass mean to you?
Well, for one thing, it's not a negative, right? So I want to put that out there one time. It's not a negative. It really is about embracing all of you, every single thing, every single part of you. Releasing all the shame, all the hurt, all the everything that keeps us back, and really so that we could truly embrace life and live life fully on our terms.
That's great. And you talk about 2020 being the point where, the pandemic, you're home, you decide to finally write this book. And for many authors, especially when they're as open as you, it can be a very cathartic experience. What were those early days when you're shaping the book? Because once you get deep into the weeds of it, it becomes more mechanical and it's all about like where the chapters go and flow and stuff like that. But that beginning process of sort of opening up that fire hose, what was that like emotionally for you? Because you mentioned it wasn't easy times for you. You had obviously health issues, but then you had personal issues. So tell me about that early process of writing the book and what it was like and the experience like.
Well, it didn't start off as a book. It really just started off as me. It's 2020. I mean, as a consultant, the world stopped, so there's no work. And so I'm thinking, so what do I do? Let me just put my thoughts down on paper. Let me just start to talk about me and how, what my journey has been like, right? And the idea was maybe one of my daughters might read it and get something out of it, but it really wasn't meant to be a book. And then I have a friend, and this one friend, she always pushes me. She's like, Judy, you don't think that you have all these life experiences? Don't you think you should write a book? And I said, well, I'm doing something. It's not a book. I'm just putting stuff down on paper. And I shared it with her, and she said, you need to keep going with this and put this out there because maybe people need to know that they're not alone in their struggles. And I've sent it to a couple people to edit, and then I was very, because I didn't want it to be a book, because I didn't want it to come out. I've found all kind of reasons why the editing was wrong. And so I kept it. And the funny thing about the Advantage Company is that in 2021, I got an email saying, explaining that we are the authority company, blah, blah, blah. And we'd like to have a conversation with you about leadership and, and I'm thinking like, where did they find me? That was my first thought, like, where did they find me? And I set up the appointment. I met with them, and then they start giving me all these crazy numbers, right? And I'm thinking like, the world is still at a standstill. There's no money not passing. This is crazy. And so I told them, thank you so much, but I think I'll pass. And I didn't tell anybody about that experience. Fast forward to 2023, October. The same person sends me another email. And I said, okay, I'll meet. And this time I met with a different person, and the conversation was very different. But by that time, I had finished putting all this stuff together. I don't know if I had chapters, but I just had finished with what I wanted to put down there. And I said to them, well, I have this thing. And I sent it to them, and they had somebody review it. And the review was so good. The review was so good that I thought, I cannot not now do this, And so that's how I end up taking the plunge and putting everything out there.
Wow, that's awesome. And you know what? And once people read the book, they'll notice that one of the things that you kind of really touch upon is the fact that true empowerment kind of begins when when you're able to shut out the noise and the external validation. And we're sort of living in a world where it's almost impossible to shut out external validation, because obviously social media,
Mhm.
if you want to be an influencer, you need to have external verification.
Validation, certainly.
You
Yeah.
you say one day, "Hey, I'm an expert," and then everyone say like, "Oh, okay, you're an expert." So you need it. So tell it, give us some advice in terms of, for folks who want to make that step, take back control of their lives, but also shutting out that noise. I mean, it can almost go back to what I mentioned earlier, that sort of this gray area that we kind of live in, where it's more nuanced than just being like, "I'm never listening to anyone again." What do you say to folks that are struggling with that?
To be able to shut out the noise, to be able to let external validation not be the thing that you need, you have to learn to validate you. And we only learn to validate ourselves when we really accept us for who we are, right? Um, some of us have bigger nose, wider hips, that kind of stuff. We just gonna have to accept us. But the thing is that because we've had some experiences that a lot of us would attach shame around, that really prevents us from seeing ourselves clearly. One of the things I say to people: start by forgiving yourself. Start by letting yourself know none of these things that happen is your fault. It's just stuff that happens. It's not you. Sometimes we confuse the things that happen with who we are, and we need to separate the two. It's just a thing that happened. It's not you. So if we can learn to start to do that, then we can know that we can validate ourselves and not rely solely on outside validation. No, outside validation isn't bad. It really isn't. But if that's what we come to depend on, then it becomes an issue when we don't know who we are. I like when people tell me good stuff, but it's okay if they don't as well, because I know who I am.
That's great. And obviously that requires a lot of courage, and you have that in a boatload of it, because you write about how you were able to walk away from relationships and jobs that didn't serve you. I mean, this could maybe go back to the childhood piece of it, but where does this courage come from? Is it develop over time? Was it that sort of like come to Jesus moment you had on the operating table? Where do you think that sort of evolved from?
Some of it definitely over time, but I'll tell you, a lot of my strength comes from my mother. So, like I told you earlier, it's a single family home, right? I have the five, so my mother has 10 kids. So there's a first five and a second five. The second five of us, we all have the same dad, the first five, right? And so my dad, they never lived together, but my dad, like, I don't know if it's a West Indian thing or if it's a man thing, but they just all cheat. And so not every man. So that's, I'm not painting everybody with the same brush, right? But I'm just saying my dad cheated. So my dad had about like two families going on at the same time. And I remember my mom was pregnant with my last brother. I mean, like her belly is way out there. And they're having a discussion. I don't like to say argument, because a discussion. And I could still see them. I could still see where they were standing. And I was just looking at them. And my mom said to him, please leave and never come back. She's pregnant, ready to deliver. And every time I think about that moment, I think about the amount of strength that she must have had to exhibit to really make that decision. So a lot of times when things are happening, I think about that moment and I think about her strength, and I'm like, yeah, I could really do this as well.
Wow. I mean, that's a lot. I mean, it is amazing what women have to go through. And, one of the things you write eloquently about is about breaking the cycle. And in a way, your mother doing that to your birth father sort of was breaking the cycle, because she could have just kept dragging on and be like, okay, I guess this is what I'm stuck with. I've got 10 kids. I got to stick with this guy because I won't be able to survive. And in a way, she broke the cycle for you because you saw what a woman should be treated like and what a woman should want. Let's get into this about breaking the cycle.
So we I like how Maya Angelou said, when we know better, we do better, right? But a lot of us remain stuck in bad relationships, bad friendships, and those kind of stuff because innately we believe that that's what we need. Sometimes it's a lot of, this is what I've seen, this is what I know, because we kind of do what we see and we kind of do what we know. But I say to people now that there's too much information available for us to think that this is where we remain. Sometimes even myself, sometimes I think maybe this is where I need to be. And then I'm like, no, this is not where I need to be. I need to be somewhere else, because inside your body knows, it really does know when you need to move out of a situation. So we may need the ones to do it for our daughters, our nieces, our aunts, our sisters, or sometimes we just need to walk away not knowing what the next move will be. Just leave if it's not if it's not what you want it to be like.
Yeah. I often ask the sliding doors question, Judy, and I don't know if you remember the Gwyneth Paltrow movie where essentially she misses a train and you see what happens in her life when she misses a train, and then she gets on the train, you see what happens when she gets on the train. So I think to your mother's moment with your dad, and think of that as a sliding doors moment. Like, what if that didn't happen? What if you didn't witness that moment in time, what your life would be like? Now, obviously, at that moment, in terms of like whether it's financial reasons or what have you, but like just the ripple effect that moment had. Have you ever thought about what your life would look like if that did not happen?
No, but I always think about what would my life had been like had I had different parents. I think about that because my mother told us a story once. Oh my God, I'm talking all my mother business. Uh, she told us a story once that she'd like this guy, and this guy had liked her, but he's this Indian guy from Trinidad, and we lived in Tobago. And in those days, of course, we had no internet, so he wrote her a letter and she wrote him back. But what she didn't know is that writing a letter in red pen have certain connotations. She said that's all the pen that she had. She didn't have another pen, so she just wrote back the letter in a red pen, and she never heard from him again. Long, long, long after she realized that in certain cultures it's like an insult when you write in a red pen. So she
Wow.
never heard from him again. And I always I wonder what life would have been like had that happened, you
Wow.
know?
If she had a big blue pen around, like if she had
Yeah,
one of
yeah.
those
If she had a blue pen or a black pen, even a pencil, what what her life really could have looked like.
Wow. Incredible. Yeah. No, it's one of those things where it's fascinating to kind of think back at those moments. But I think just, talking to you, reading your book, it's like your mother's certainly had a huge influence on
Yes,
you.
she did.
And I'm curious in terms of like the influence you had on yourself, because, you talk about living in that one bedroom apartment and the struggles you had. Would, like, maybe if we had like one of those time machines where you can go back and give a young Judy a warning, would there be something you would tell her and be like, hey Judy, look out for that one thing. You don't
Yeah,
want to do that.
yeah.
You don't want to do that again.
I'll tell her to be less impulsive. Be less impulsive. Because I was really impulsive. I'm still kind of sort of impulsive, but not as much as I was. Be more. Think a little bit more about how the decision that you make will affect you throughout your life. So that's the one thing I will tell her. Everything else, I think she was good, but just that one set of impulsive decisions.
Well, it's like going back to what you said earlier, self-awareness. Now, you're more self-aware now that you are impulsive. Back younger Judy, probably not so self-aware of
Mm.
her impulsive
Not
nature.
at
So
all.
yeah,
Not at all.
yeah. So let's give a little plug to Go Blue Consulting. Just so folks, if they ever want to work with you, find out more about you. What do you do over there?
All right. So we're a management consulting company and we focus a lot on strategic HR services and learning and development for leaders. So we do for the HR services, we do a lot of job evaluations, we do organizational audits, we do HR audits, we look at redesigning what the organization could look like based on what is happening in the organization, and a lot of leadership training. I avoid um training anybody that's below the supervisory level, and there's a reason for that, right? When you train, so let's do customer service as an example. When you train frontline staff on customer service and you give them all these great tools and they go back into an environment that's not enabling, I think we would have wasted their time and mine. Yes, I gave them all the tools and so on. So if people ask me to do a customer service training, I say to them, you need to train the people who's responsible for the people giving the customer service. If you don't train them, I can't train the customer service people. It must go hand in hand. But I focus mostly on leadership because they're the ones who truly set the tone for the organization. And if we could get them to understand how their behavior impacts and create the culture, then the people who are not on the leadership or management level will definitely benefit from that.
No, that's great. And I love to talk about this because I know as an American, we like to think the world revolves around us and everyone acts like us. And you do a lot of work in North and Central America, but also obviously the Caribbean.
Yes.
What are the differences that you see? Because and obviously culture plays a big part of this. Like you wouldn't probably use the same HR practices in North America that you would in, say, Asia. So how do you, like, the old square peg round hole? Like, how do you fit what you do? Because obviously there's probably like a North Star that points you in the direction of what you're trying to do. But how do you get on that track when you have cultural differences? Because that's always been fascinating to me, because it's very rare for someone in your space, because someone in your space is usually just like, hey, I'm only working in North America, I'm only working in South, because of that cultural differences. So tell me how you navigate that.
Two things. I love people and I love food. You understand people's culture through their food. So when I go, like I did some work in Haiti, and one of the things that I did so I could truly understand the people and how best to work with them, I went to a lot of the local spots, see how people interact with each other, see what they eat, break bread with them, chat with them, so that as I start working with the people within the organization, I had a better understanding of how I should say this, how I should approach this, because one of the things that causes consultants to fail when they move into another culture is that they don't take the time understand the culture of the people. And like with even any organization moving from North America, moving to Asia, or moving to the Caribbean or the UK or whatever, is about understanding the culture of the people. Know that you can't take wholesale what you have here and superimpose it here because it won't work. So it's just really understanding the culture. And if you like food, then it helps you.
Yeah. And it's almost like you have to be a bit of an anthropologist, that you have to kind of study these cultures
You
before you
must,
try.
you must, you must, you must
When did you realize
understand.
that? When did you realize that was so important? Because I think for a lot of people, they're like, hey, I've created this amazing system. This system is going to work everywhere. When did you realize, oh, no, I'm going to have to get down and I'll have to go to restaurants, talk to people? When did you come to that realization?
So because I grew up in Tobago, even though Trinidad and Tobago is it's one country, they're two different islands, and the cultures on both islands are different,
Okay.
very different. We song one way, they song another way. We even our accents are different. So when I moved to Trinidad, so I moved to Trinidad when I was 19. And so to be able to fit in, I ain't so like that phrase, but to be able to fit in, I had to understand the culture in Trinidad, right? And then I moved to Belize. And when I moved to Belize, I realized, okay, so I have adopted the culture in Trinidad. It will not work the same way here. So then now I have to learn a new way of doing and being and all of that. And then I moved to Grenada. Very, very different. But in between all of that, I've worked in Barbados, Jamaica, I've worked in Haiti, I've worked in Central America. So it has given me like a real good base for understanding that I cannot take just my perspective and put it on top of yours. Right? So yeah.
That's great. Yeah, I was wondering because you talked about your family and what an influence it had on you. The 9 other siblings, did they all stay in Tobago? Did they jump around the planet like you did? Because are you the odd duck of the family who decided to go
Well,
travel the world?
yeah, I jump around a lot.
Yes.
I love to travel. I really enjoy traveling because I enjoy people and different cultures. And again, I like food.
Yeah.
So I really enjoy that. But not everybody stayed in Tobago. I have most of my siblings moved to Trinidad, and I have siblings in the US.
Okay. Okay. So you're
Yeah.
not so strange. You're the
No.
family.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. And what do they think about the book and you telling your story? Because I think that's one of the things that for many people, when it comes to telling their story, it involves other people usually. So what is the reaction been from the siblings and the family?
Could I tell you a secret?
Go ahead.
They have not read it. I haven't shared it with them. But I was really careful when I was writing because I knew that it's going to involve some of them. So I was very, very careful with what I shared, right?
Okay.
Because I just want them to read it. Now, my two brothers, my brother before me and my last brother, they know about the book. I didn't share it with the rest of people.
Is
And
there going to be any drama, Judy? Do you think anyone might be upset? I mean, it sounds like
no,
careful.
I don't think so. Maybe my one sister, maybe this one sister might be.
That's always a sister.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that one sister might be. And so I try to not talk too much about her in the book because but I don't think there'll be drama. There might be some judgment because some of
Right.
the things that they didn't know previously about me, but yeah, I don't think there'll be any drama.
Well, you wouldn't be unapologetic and unfiltered if you cared what your brothers and sisters said, right? I mean,
Mhm.
you are living the brand.
That's right.
All right. So this 5-year journey that started in 2020 with the pandemic, when you started noodling around, you eventually, hooked up with Advantage Media, got the book out now here in 2025. What's next? I mean, this is always the thing when a movie star puts out a movie they spent like the last year on, and then they do press and like, okay, cool, we don't care about that. What's next? So I'm going to do that. What's next for Judy McCutcheon?
What's next?
Yes.
I tend to have I have this tendency where I'm finished with one thing, and before I stop to enjoy it, I move on to the next thing. I'm trying to um live by my own rules now, by the thing I say to people. So I'm going to pause a little bit and truly enjoy this moment. I want to do a couple book launches. You know, they call them book tours. A couple of those. I'm doing the first one in Chicago at the end of June, and I'm right now working on a TED Talk. So I want to do that. I promised myself that by the end of 2025, I must either have completed a TED Talk or have one booked. So I'm working on that, and I'm working on really honing my speaking craft a little more. So I'm really seeking out more speaking engagements and stuff like that. But I already have another book in my head.
Okay. That's great. That's great. It does sound like impulsive Judy's gone though. It sounds like you've now taking the time, letting it breathe. What do you stop and smell the roses? So
Yeah.
you said practice what you preach. You got to
Yes.
eat what you
Yeah.
cook, right? So
Yep. Yep.
that's good.
Yep.
Is that because I feel like even with people I work with, it's almost like the old do as I say, not as I do. Do you struggle with that sometimes? Do you have to catch yourself and be like, oh man, wait a minute, I'm not doing what
Yeah.
I'm telling people
Sometimes,
that they.
sometimes I have to catch myself. But because I really want to live my truth, I truly want to live like that. I am a little bit more intentional in. So if I'm saying to you, I think this is the best way, then that's the way I'm going to go. And it's okay to change your mind, because maybe you say that without having all the information, and then you have some more information, and then you can change your mind. But for me, living my truth has become more urgent more than anything else. And maybe it's just as you get older, I don't know, but
Yeah, it's possible. Her name is Judy McCutcheon. The book, Unfiltered and Unapologetic. Judy, thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
thank you so much. I enjoyed this conversation. I really did.
And that's going to do it for this episode. If you want to find out more information about Judy and our other amazing authors, go to theauthoritycompany.com.